The front door clicked shut behind me at 11:47 p.m., and I could already see Miles sitting in his armchair, laptop closed, waiting. The living room felt smaller than usual, like the walls had moved closer together while I was gone. I kicked off my heels and tried to look casual, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. "Hey babe, you're up late," I said, dropping my purse on the console table. The sound echoed louder than it should have in the quiet house. Miles looked up from his phone, his brown eyes tired but alert. "How was the project meeting?" "Long. Really long." I walked toward the kitchen, hoping he'd follow so we could talk, while I busied myself with something. Anything. You know how Jonas gets when he's focused. We went through every single detail of the marketing campaign. At his apartment? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I paused at the refrigerator, my hand on the handle. The office was too noisy earlier. All those construction sounds from the renovation upstairs. We needed somewhere quiet to concentrate. Miles stood up slowly, his 6-foot frame unfolding from the chair. "Faine, it's almost midnight. On a Thursday. I know, I should have called." I pulled out a water bottle and twisted the cap, buying myself a few seconds. But we were so deep into the budget projections, and then we had to revise the whole timeline because marketing wants to push the launch date up by 2 weeks. 2 weeks? His voice was flat, emotionless. "Yeah, crazy, right? That's why Jonas needed my help with the analytics. You know how much better I am with the numbers than anyone else on his team." I took a long drink of water, watching Miles over the bottle. He was studying my face like he was memorizing it. "How long have you been helping him with projects?" The question hung in the air between us. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the dishwasher finishing its cycle, Lila's sound machine upstairs playing ocean waves, normal household sounds that suddenly felt ominous. "What do you mean? We work together, Miles. Sometimes projects overlap." I set the water bottle down harder than necessary. "Why are you interrogating me like I did something wrong?" "I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking my wife why she's coming home at midnight from another man's apartment." "Another man?" I laughed, but it came out sharp and brittle. "Jonas is a colleague, a friend. We've been working together for 3 years, and you've never had a problem with it before." "I've never had a problem with you working late at the office. But this is different." "Different how?" I crossed my arms, feeling defensive anger rise in my chest. It was easier than the guilt that had been gnawing at me during the entire drive home. "Because he's a man? Because he's single?" "God, Miles, I thought you trusted me." Miles ran his hand through his dark hair, leaving it messy. "I do trust you, but..." "But what? But you think I'm lying to you? But you think I'm sneaking around?" My voice was getting louder, and I forced myself to lower it. Lila was sleeping upstairs, and the last thing I needed was for her to wake up and hear us fighting. "I think you're spending a lot of time with Jonas lately, more time than you spend with your own family." "That's not fair." I felt tears prick at my eyes, real ones, because part of what he was saying was true, and I hated that he could see it. "I'm working hard for this family, for our future. The promotion I'm up for could mean an extra 20,000 a year, Miles." 20,000? His shoulders sagged slightly. "I know you work hard. I know you want that promotion. But coming home this late, not answering your phone when I called..." "My phone was on silent. I told you we were deep in work mode." "For 6 hours?" I stared at him. "You were timing me." "I was worried about you." His voice cracked slightly. "When you didn't come home for dinner, I called. When you didn't answer, I called again. Lila asked where Mommy was, and I didn't know what to tell her." The guilt hit me like a physical blow. I had forgotten about dinner. Completely forgotten. Jonas and I had ordered Chinese food around 7, eating it on his couch while we went through spreadsheets. Except we hadn't been looking at spreadsheets the whole time. We'd been talking, laughing, sitting closer than necessary. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I should have called. I lost track of time. Miles nodded slowly. Okay, but Faine, I need you to be honest with me. Is there something going on with Jonas? The question I'd been dreading. The question I'd been asking myself for weeks. What do you mean, something going on? You know what I mean. I looked directly into his eyes. My husband of 8 years, the father of my daughter, the man who'd held me while I cried about my father's death, and who still brought me coffee in bed on Sunday mornings. No, Miles. There's nothing going on. Jonas is helping me with a project, and I'm helping him with his. That's all. It wasn't technically a lie. We hadn't crossed any physical lines. We'd just talked, shared things, connected in ways that made me feel alive and interesting and desired. But Miles didn't need to know about the way Jonas looked at me during meetings, or how he'd started texting me good morning every day, or how tonight he'd almost kissed me before I pulled away and said I had to go home. Miles studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I believe you. But I could see in his eyes that he didn't. Not completely. I'm going to bed, he said. Are you coming up? In a few minutes. I want to check my emails, make sure I didn't miss anything important. He kissed my forehead, a dry, perfunctory kiss. Good night, Faine. Good night. I waited until I heard his footsteps on the stairs, then pulled out my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Miles, just like he'd said, but I also had 7 text messages from Jonas. Hope you got home safe. Thanks for staying late to help with this. You're amazing at what you do. I really enjoyed our conversation tonight. Can't wait to work together again tomorrow. Sweet dreams. Let me know you made it home okay. I scrolled through them twice, my heart racing. Then I typed back, made it home. He bought the story about the project. Don't worry. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then immediately deleted the message from my sent folder. Just in case. Upstairs, I could hear Miles moving around in our bedroom, getting ready for bed. I should go up. I should curl up next to my husband and forget about Jonas Heller and his green eyes and the way he made me feel like I was 25 again instead of 34 and tired and invisible. Instead, I stayed downstairs for another hour, answering work emails and telling myself that what I was doing wasn't wrong. It was just friendship, just work, just harmless conversation with someone who appreciated me. But when I finally went upstairs, Miles was asleep facing away from me. And for the first time in our marriage, I was glad. Sunday morning at Rosemary's Bistro was supposed to be our family tradition. Extended family gathered around the big corner table, Lila coloring on her kids' menu, while the adults caught up over coffee and pancakes. It was the kind of normal, wholesome routine that made me feel like we had our lives together. Today, it felt like walking into a courtroom. Faine, honey, you look tired, my mother Maureen said as I slid into the booth next to her. She was already nursing her second cup of coffee, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the early hour. Are you getting enough sleep? Work's been crazy, I said, avoiding Miles's eyes across the table. He was cutting up Lila's French toast, his movements precise and controlled. You know how it is during campaign season. She's been working very late, Miles said without looking up. Very, very late. Maureen, Miles's mother, raised an eyebrow. She was sitting next to Theo, Miles's younger brother, and I could feel her disapproval radiating across the table like heat from a furnace. How late is very late? Not that late, I said quickly. Miles is exaggerating. Midnight isn't that late. Miles's voice was calm, conversational, but I could hear the edge underneath. Sophie, my sister, jumped in before I could respond. Oh, please, Miles. Faine's always been a night owl. Remember in college when she'd stay up until 3 a.m. working on papers? Some people are just more productive in the evening. This isn't college, Maureen said crisply. This is a marriage with a 7-year-old child. Lila looked up from her coloring, her brown eyes, Miles's eyes, wide and curious. Why is everyone talking about Mommy working late? Because Daddy's being silly, I said, ruffling her hair. Sometimes grown-ups have to work late to finish important projects. Like when you were helping Mr. Jonas with his computer, Lila asked innocently. The table went quiet. I felt heat creep up my neck. That's right, sweetheart. Sometimes we help our coworkers. Who's Mr. Jonas? Theo asked. He was trying to keep his tone light, but I could see him glance between Miles and me. A colleague, I said. He's the project manager for our biggest client campaign. We've been collaborating on the analytics. Collaborating, Maureen repeated, like the word tasted sour. Yes, collaborating. It's called teamwork, Maureen. Maybe you've heard of it. The words came out sharper than I intended, and I immediately regretted them when I saw Miles's jaw tighten. Faine, my mother said quietly, a warning in her voice. Sorry, I'm just tired of being made to feel guilty for working hard. Some people can't handle strong women in demanding careers. It was a low blow, and I knew it. Maureen had been a stay-at-home mother, had built her life around supporting her husband's career and raising her children. But I was feeling cornered, and cornered animals bite. Maureen's face went pale, then red. I see. I didn't mean... I started, but Sophie cut me off. What Faine means is that she's under a lot of pressure right now. The promotion she's going for is a big deal. Sometimes that requires extra effort. Extra effort with Mr. Jonas? Maureen asked pointedly. Extra effort with the team, I corrected. Jonas happens to be the team lead. Miles finally looked up from Lila's plate. And does Jonas's wife understand all this extra effort? Jonas isn't married, I said automatically, then immediately wished I could take it back when I saw the look that passed between Miles and his mother. Ah, Maureen said. I see. You see what? That he's a single professional who doesn't have to rush home for dinner every night, that he can focus on work without someone timing his every move. I was getting angry now, the defensive rage building in my chest. Not everyone has the luxury of leaving at 5 o'clock sharp. Faine. Miles's voice was quiet, but there was steel in it. Stop. Before I could respond, I heard a familiar laugh from across the restaurant. My blood turned to ice water. Jonas was walking in with a woman I'd never seen before. She was tall, blonde, elegant in the way that came from money and good breeding. Her hand was on his arm, and she was laughing at something he'd said. Oh, shit, I whispered, then clapped my hand over my mouth when I realized I'd spoken out loud. Language, Maureen said automatically, glancing at Lila. Jonas spotted our table and raised his hand in a wave. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. Friend of yours? Theo asked, following my gaze. That's Mr. Jonas, Lila said brightly, waving back. Hi, Mr. Jonas. Jonas started walking over, the blonde woman still on his arm. I wanted to disappear into the booth cushions. Faine, what a coincidence. Jonas's smile was warm, genuine, the same smile that had been making my stomach flutter for weeks. Fancy running into you here. Hi, Jonas. This is my family. I gestured vaguely around the table, hoping he'd take the hint and keep walking. Great to meet everyone. I'm Jonas Heller. He shook hands with the men, nodded politely to the women. Faine and I work together. She's been a lifesaver on our current project. So we've heard, Maureen said dryly. The blonde woman, girlfriend, date, wife, smiled politely, but I caught her giving me a once-over that felt like an assessment. I'm Amanda, she said. Jonas has mentioned working with a very talented analyst. That's our Faine, Sophie said, always going above and beyond. Especially lately, Miles added quietly. Jonas either didn't catch the undercurrent or chose to ignore it. Well, we don't want to interrupt your family time. Enjoy your brunch. You too, I managed. As they walked away to their own table, Amanda leaned close to Jonas and said something that made him laugh. But I caught her glancing back at our table, her expression thoughtful. Nice young man, my mother said diplomatically. Very friendly, Maureen agreed, but her tone suggested that friendly wasn't necessarily a good thing. Can we please just eat our breakfast? I asked. I'd like to enjoy one family meal without being interrogated. No one's interrogating you, Theo said gently. We're just concerned. About what? About you, Miles said. About us. About Lila. I looked around the table at their faces. My mother, worried but supportive. Sophie, defensive on my behalf but uncertain. Theo, trying to play peacemaker. Maureen, openly disapproving. Miles, hurt and angry and trying to hide both. And Lila, still colouring, but her small body tense with the awareness that the adults were upset about something she didn't understand. There's nothing to be concerned about, I said firmly. I'm working hard for my family's future. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for everyone. Miles pulled out his phone and set it on the table, face down. Excuse me for a minute. I need to use the restroom. He stood up and walked away, leaving his phone behind. Which was strange, because Miles never went anywhere without his phone. Everything okay between you two? Theo asked quietly. Everything's fine, I said. Miles is just going through a phase. You know how he gets when he's stressed about work. But even as I said it, I was staring at his phone on the table, wondering why he'd left it there. Wondering if he was testing me somehow. From across the restaurant, I could hear Amanda's voice, clear and carrying. Some people should really learn to set boundaries. I didn't look over to see if she was talking about me, but something in my chest told me she was. And when Miles came back from the restroom 5 minutes later, he picked up his phone and slipped it into his pocket without a word. But I could have sworn I saw a red recording light blink off just before the screen went dark. Monday morning hit me like a freight train. I was barely through the lobby doors when I could feel the stares. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as I walked past. Clusters of coworkers suddenly found their phones very interesting when I looked their way. Something was wrong. I made it to my desk and fired up my computer, trying to look normal while my heart hammered in my chest. The open-plan office buzzed with its usual Monday morning energy, but there was an undercurrent I couldn't quite identify. Morning, Faine. Sarah from accounting appeared at my cubicle wall, coffee in hand, and that particular expression people get when they have gossip to share. How was your weekend? Fine. Quiet family time. I pulled up my emails, hoping she'd take the hint and move along. That's nice. Very wholesome. She paused, clearly waiting for me to ask what she meant by that. When I didn't, she leaned closer. So, I heard you and Jonas have been working really closely on the Morrison campaign. My fingers froze over the keyboard. We're collaborating on the analytics, yes. Why? Oh, no reason. Just heard you two have been putting in some serious after-hours time together. It's a big project, I said carefully. Sometimes that requires extra effort. Sarah nodded knowingly. I'm sure it does. Well, I should let you get back to it. Big presentation today, right? After she walked away, I sat staring at my computer screen without seeing it. How did Sarah know about the presentation? It wasn't on any public calendar. The only people who knew about it were Jonas, me, and our immediate supervisors. My instant message chimed. Jonas, good morning, ready for today? Me, ready as I'll ever be, you. Jonas, confident, we make a good team. Before I could respond, another message popped up from my supervisor, Patricia. Please see me in my office at 9 a.m. My stomach dropped. Patricia never called early morning meetings unless something was wrong. I spent the next 20 minutes trying to focus on my presentation notes, but I kept catching glimpses of people looking my way, whispering behind hands, checking their phones and then glancing at me. At exactly 9 a.m., I knocked on Patricia's office door. Come in, Faine. Close the door behind you. Patricia was in her 50s, grey-haired and no-nonsense, the kind of manager who'd climb the corporate ladder through competence and careful politics. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. How are things going with the Morrison campaign? Very well. Jonas and I have the analytics locked down and we're ready for the client presentation this afternoon. Good. And how would you describe your working relationship with Jonas? Warning bells went off in my head. Professional, collaborative, he's easy to work with. Patricia nodded slowly. I'm sure he is. Faine, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need a direct answer. Is there anything going on between you and Jonas that I should be aware of? What do you mean? I mean exactly what you think I mean. I felt heat creep up my neck. No, absolutely not. We work together. That's all. Because I've had some concerns raised about the amount of time you two have been spending together outside the office. We've had a few working dinners, late strategy sessions, nothing inappropriate. Patricia pulled out her phone and set it on the desk between us. I received this in my email this morning, from an anonymous account. She pressed play, and my world tilted sideways. It was a video, clearly taken from a phone across a restaurant. The quality was grainy, but I could clearly see myself and Jonas at a corner table at Marcello's, the Italian place near his apartment. We were leaning close together, laughing. In the video, it looked intimate, romantic, but what made my blood turn to ice was the timestamp. Friday night. The night I'd told Miles I was working late at the office. This was taken last Friday evening, Patricia said calmly. The same Friday you submitted a timesheet showing you worked until 10 p.m. in the office. I stared at the phone screen, watching myself touch Jonas's hand across the table. In the context of the video, it looked damning. But it hadn't been like that. We'd been celebrating finishing the Morrison analytics ahead of schedule. The hand touch had been congratulatory, friendly, hadn't it? I can explain, I started. I'm sure you can. But the explanation I need to hear is how this doesn't violate our workplace conduct policies. We were discussing the project over dinner. Sometimes it's easier to strategize in a quieter environment. At a romantic restaurant. On a Friday night. While you were officially clocked in at the office. I felt trapped, caught in a web of small lies that had suddenly become very large. It wasn't romantic. We're colleagues. Faine, I've been in management for 15 years. I know what workplace relationships look like, and I know what they can do to team dynamics. More importantly, I know what they can do to careers. There is no workplace relationship. Patricia studied my face for a long moment. Here's what's going to happen. You and Jonas will no longer work directly together on projects. The Morrison presentation will proceed as planned this afternoon, but after that, you'll be reassigned to different accounts. That's not fair. We work well together. Our results speak for themselves. Your results are excellent. Your judgment, however, is questionable. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Faine, you're a talented analyst. You have a bright future here if you want it. But that future doesn't include blurring professional boundaries. I haven't blurred anything. The video suggests otherwise. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain that it wasn't what it looked like, but I could see in Patricia's face that the decision was already made. Is there anything else I should know? She asked. Any other situations that might require HR involvement? No, nothing. Good. Then we'll consider this matter closed, provided there are no further incidents. I walked back to my desk feeling like everyone in the office was watching me, which they probably were, because news traveled fast in our building, and Patricia's office had glass walls. Jonas was waiting by my cubicle, his face concerned. Everything okay? You look pale. We need to talk, privately. We found an empty conference room, and I closed the door behind us. Someone took a video of us at Marcello's, I said without preamble. Friday night, they sent it to Patricia. Jonas went very still. What kind of video? The kind that makes it look like we were on a date instead of a working dinner. Shit. He ran his hands through his hair. What did Patricia say? That we can't work together anymore after today. That it violates workplace conduct policies. But we haven't done anything wrong. I stared at him. Haven't we? The question hung between us, because we both knew that while we hadn't crossed any physical lines, we'd been walking right up to them. The long dinners that weren't really about work. The text messages that went beyond professional. The way we looked at each other during meetings. Faine, Don't. I held up my hand. Just don't. We need to get through today's presentation, and then we need to maintain some distance. Is that what you want? The honest answer was no. The honest answer was that I looked forward to our conversations more than anything else in my day. That he made me feel interesting and attractive and valued in ways I'd forgotten I could feel. But the honest answer was also dangerous. It's what needs to happen, I said instead. After the meeting, I checked my phone and found 3 missed calls from my mother and a string of text messages from Sophie. Call me ASAP, people are talking, mom's freaking out. Miles's mum called her, this is getting messy. I stepped outside to call Sophie back. Finally, she said when she picked up, what the hell is going on? Maureen called mom this morning saying there are rumors about you and some guy from work. There are no rumors. There's nothing to rumor about. Faine, don't bullshit me. I saw how you looked at that guy yesterday at brunch. And I saw how his girlfriend looked at you. How did I look at him? Like you wanted to eat him for dessert. I closed my eyes, leaning against the building wall. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're playing with fire while your husband watches you light the match. Miles is being paranoid and controlling. Miles is being a husband who loves his wife and can see that she's pulling away from him. I'm not pulling away, I'm working. I'm trying to build a career. By flirting with your coworker. I'm not flirting with anyone. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Faine, I love you. You're my sister, and I'll always have your back. But you need to be really careful here. Whatever you think you're doing, however innocent you think it is, it's not looking innocent to anyone else. So now you're taking Miles's side. I'm taking reality's side, and reality is that you're married with a 7-year-old daughter and you're spending your evenings with another man. After I hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot, staring at my phone. I had 17 unread emails, most of them work-related, but buried in the middle was one that made my heart stop. The sender was listed as a concerned friend. The subject line read, "You should see what's being shared." I opened it with trembling fingers. Thought you should know that the video from Friday night is making the rounds. Might want to get ahead of this before it reaches the wrong people. If it hasn't already. Attached was the same video Patricia had shown me, but this version was longer. It showed Jonas walking me to my car, his hand on my back. It showed him leaning down to say something in my ear that made me laugh. It showed what looked like an almost kiss before I stepped back and got in my car. And it showed the license plate clearly enough that anyone who knew me would recognize my car. I deleted the email immediately, but I knew it was too late. If this anonymous person had the video, how many others did too? I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing with notifications I was too scared to check. When I pulled into our driveway, I saw Miles's car already there, which was unusual for a Monday afternoon. I found him in the kitchen, making coffee. He looked up when I walked in, and I could see immediately that he knew. "How was work?" he asked quietly. "Fine, long day." "I'm sure it was." He poured coffee into 2 mugs, added cream to mine the way I liked it. "Faine, we need to talk." "About what?" Instead of answering, he pulled out his phone and set it on the kitchen counter. The screen showed a text message thread, but I couldn't see the details from where I was standing. "Someone sent me something today," he said. "Something I think you should see." My legs felt weak. "Miles." "Just look at it, Faine. Look at it, and then tell me again that there's nothing going on." I didn't need to look. I already knew what it was, but I looked anyway, and watched my marriage crack apart in real time. The school pickup line was usually my refuge. 20 minutes of mindless waiting while I scrolled through social media or caught up on emails, followed by Lila's bright chatter about her day. Normal mum stuff, safe territory. Today, it felt like running a gauntlet. I could see other parents in their cars, phones pressed to their ears, eyes tracking my movement. When I waved at Jennifer Martinez, whose daughter was in Lila's class, she gave me a tight smile and looked away quickly. My phone buzzed with another text from an unknown number. I'd been getting them all week since the video started circulating. Most were from coworkers or acquaintances, some supportive, others clearly fishing for gossip. A few were from numbers I didn't recognize at all. Saw the video. Girl, you need to be more careful. Is it true you're leaving Miles? That guy from your work is cute. I don't blame you. Your husband deserves better. Think about your daughter. That last one hit like a physical blow. Because I was thinking about Lila. I was thinking about her constantly, about how quiet she'd been at breakfast, how she'd asked why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room, how she'd started having nightmares again. The school doors opened, and children began streaming out. I spotted Lila immediately. She was walking more slowly than usual, her backpack dragging behind her instead of bouncing on her shoulders like it normally did. "Hey, baby," I said as she climbed into the back seat. "How was school?" "Okay." She buckled her seatbelt without meeting my eyes. "Just okay? What did you do in art class today?" "We drew our families." My heart clenched. "That sounds fun. Can I see it?" She pulled a crumpled paper from her backpack and handed it to me. The drawing showed 3 figures, a tall man labeled Daddy, a smaller figure labeled me, and off to one side, almost like an afterthought, a woman labeled Mommy, who appeared to be talking on a phone. "This is beautiful, sweetheart. I love how you drew Daddy so tall." "Mrs. Peterson wants to talk to you," Lila said quietly. "Mrs. Peterson? Your teacher. Why?" "She said she needs to talk to all the mommies and daddies about something." Before I could ask more questions, I heard a tap on my passenger window. Mrs. Peterson was standing there, her expression carefully neutral, but her eyes concerned. I rolled down the window. "Hi, Mrs. Peterson. Lila said you wanted to speak with me." "If you have a few minutes, yes. Would it be possible for Lila to wait in the classroom while we chat? She can help me organize the art supplies." Warning bells went off in my head, but I nodded. "Of course." 5 minutes later, I was sitting in a tiny plastic chair across from Mrs. Peterson's desk, feeling like I was the one in trouble. "Mrs. Varel, I wanted to speak with you about some changes I've noticed in Lila recently." "What kind of changes?" "She's been more withdrawn in class, less participative during group activities, and she's mentioned several times that there's tension at home." Mrs. Peterson consulted her notes. "Yesterday, she told me that Mommy and Daddy use their quiet, angry voices a lot now." My cheeks burned. "We've been having some communication issues. Nothing serious, just normal marriage stuff." "I understand, but I'm also concerned because another parent reached out to me with some questions about Lila's home situation." My blood turned cold. "What kind of questions?" "Questions about whether Lila was being affected by external stressors. This parent had heard some rumors and was concerned about how they might be impacting the children in our classroom." "Rumors about what?" Mrs. Peterson looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Varel, I don't typically get involved in parents' personal lives, but when rumors start affecting a child's emotional well-being, I have to take notice." "What rumors?" I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. "About your marriage, about possible infidelity." She said the word like it tasted bad. Again, normally this would be none of my business, but Lila has been acting out in ways that suggest she's picking up on adult stress. I felt like the walls were closing in. "Who called you? Which parent?" "I can't share that information, but I can tell you that they were genuinely concerned about Lila's welfare." "Lila is fine. She's loved and cared for, and I'm sure she is. But Mrs. Varel, children are incredibly sensitive to their parents' emotional states. Even when we think we're hiding our problems from them, they sense the tension." I thought about this morning, when Lila had asked why I was crying in the shower. I'd told her I had soap in my eyes. "What are you suggesting I do?" "I'm suggesting that you and your husband consider family counseling. For Lila's sake, if not your own. and I'm suggesting that you be very careful about what conversations happen within earshot of your daughter. We don't fight in front of her. You don't have to fight in front of her for her to know something's wrong. Children are remarkably perceptive. When I got home, Lila immediately went to her room to do homework, and I found myself alone in the kitchen, staring at Mrs. Peterson's business card for a family counselor. My phone rang. Sophie. Hey, I was just checking in. How are you holding up? Someone called Lila's teacher, I said without preamble. Someone from the school community who's concerned about rumors affecting Lila. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Shit, that's not good, Faine. Who would do that? Who would involve my daughter in this mess? I don't know, but maybe they have a point. Excuse me? About Lila being affected. Kids pick up on everything, Faine. If you and Miles are having problems, she knows. We're handling our problems privately. Are you? Because from the outside, it looks like your problems are becoming pretty public. I sank into a kitchen chair. I never meant for any of this to happen. I know you didn't, but it is happening, and now you need to figure out how to protect Lila while you sort through it. After I hung up, I checked my email and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. mvrelsryemail.com. Maureen. Faine, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly, but I felt it was important to let you know that I've contacted Lila's school to offer my support during this difficult time. I've also spoken with our family attorney about grandparents' rights, should the situation require it. I want you to know that my concern is solely for Lila's well-being. Whatever issues you and Miles are working through, she should not have to suffer for them. I hope you'll consider what's best for everyone involved. Maureen. My hands were shaking as I read it twice. Grandparents' rights. She was threatening me, politely, carefully, but threatening me nonetheless. I was still staring at the email when Miles walked through the front door. He looked exhausted, older than his 36 years. How was Lila's pickup? He asked, hanging his jacket in the closet. Her teacher wants to talk to us, both of us, about how our communication issues are affecting her. Miles closed his eyes. Someone called the school, didn't they? How did you know? Because my mother called me at work today to tell me she'd reached out to Mrs. Peterson. She's worried about Lila. She's threatening us, Miles. She mentioned grandparents' rights. She's not threatening us. She's protecting her granddaughter. He looked at me directly for the first time in days, because someone needs to. The accusation hung between us like a blade, because he was right. I had been so focused on protecting myself, on managing the fallout from the video and the rumors, that I hadn't been protecting the person who mattered most. I never wanted Lila to be affected by this, I said quietly, but she is affected. She asked me this morning if Mommy and Daddy were getting divorced. My heart broke a little. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes grown-ups have problems they need to work through, but that we both love her very much. And she asked if your problems had to do with Mr. Jonas. I felt the blood drain from my face. She asked what? Apparently she heard us talking, or arguing. She knows his name, Faine. She knows there's a connection between your work friend and our marriage problems. I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. Oh, God. Yeah, oh, God. Miles sat down across from me, not next to me. The distance felt intentional. So now my 7-year-old daughter is asking questions about her mother's relationship with another man. How do you think that makes me feel? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Faine. Sorry doesn't explain to Lila why her family is falling apart. Our family isn't falling apart. Isn't it? He pulled out his phone. Because I've been getting calls all week, from friends, from coworkers, from my brother. Everyone wants to know if the rumors are true. Everyone wants to know if my wife is having an affair. I'm not having an affair. Then what would you call it? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it, because I didn't know what to call it. The emotional connection with Jonas felt too significant to dismiss as friendship. but we hadn't crossed any physical lines. We'd shared thoughts and feelings and dreams, but we hadn't kissed. We'd spent hours talking about everything and nothing, but we hadn't slept together. What was the word for betraying your marriage without technically cheating? I don't know, I admitted. Well, figure it out, Miles said, standing up, because our daughter is listening, and she deserves better than this confusion. He started to walk away, then turned back. Oh, and Faine, whatever you decide to call it, you should probably know that someone forwarded your text messages to my mother. My heart stopped. What text messages? The ones between you and Jonas, from the past 2 months. His voice was calm, deadly calm. Apparently, someone thought she should know what kind of person is raising her granddaughter. How? How did someone get my text messages? I don't know, but I do know that my mother now has screenshots of you telling another man that you wish you could spend more time with him, that you think about him when you're lying next to your husband, that you've never felt this connected to anyone before. The room started spinning. I had written those things, in moments of weakness, in the middle of sleepless nights, when Miles was snoring next to me, and I felt invisible and unappreciated. I'd written them and immediately regretted them, but I'd never deleted them. Miles, don't, just don't. He was already walking toward the stairs. I'm going to go read Lila a bedtime story and pretend that her mother isn't destroying our family, one text message at a time. I sat alone in the living room, listening to his footsteps on the stairs, listening to the murmur of his voice as he read to our daughter, and I wondered how I'd gotten here, how I'd gone from a working mother trying to advance her career to a woman whose text messages were being forwarded to her mother-in-law as evidence of her moral failures. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Your husband seems like a good man. Hope you realize what you're throwing away. I turned off my phone and went upstairs to apologize to my daughter for problems she shouldn't have to understand. But when I got to her room, she was already asleep, and Miles was sitting in the rocking chair beside her bed, watching her breathe. She had another nightmare, he said quietly, about our family breaking apart. What did you tell her? I told her that sometimes families go through hard times, but that doesn't mean they stop loving each other. Do you still love me? The question came out before I could stop it. Miles looked at me for a long moment. I love the woman I married. I'm not sure who you've become. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain that I was still the same person. But looking at him sitting there, protecting our daughter from the chaos I'd created, I wasn't sure who I'd become either.